So tonight is Wednesday, July the 17th, 2013. This is ECP 3703, Managerial Economics, The Survivors. Good, because you had to make a C or better on the midterm to stay in the course. Okay, and in a matter of how many weeks, we'll have a final. How far away is that? It's very close, isn't it? 4 weeks? Yeah. So what are we going to cover in the next 4 weeks? You've already covered a week's worth. What's going to be on the last exam? A warning. That construction of the demand curve from 2 data points and measuring the consumer surplus, be prepared to do that again. And then we'll talk about some of the methodologies used in capturing some of that consumer surplus. We'll talk about things like block pricing, two-part pricing, price discrimination. In a lot of this last exam, aside from that particular specific demand curve for a company, we really transition now. We talk about the competition that you or I would face in a given business out there. How much competition is there? And depending on the degree of competition, what kind of actions should we be looking at undertaking? That sounds boring as hell to me. How about you? Yeah. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to touch on marketing, for example. What is marketing? Anybody here ever had a course in marketing? What did marketing teach you?
Finding ways to sell a product.
Finding ways to sell a product. In business, we say nothing happens till somebody buys something. Right? Well, that's cool. That's cool for business, but to me, so much of what we teach in business is also pertinent to you and I individually. And we have to market ourselves for the rest of our lives. Perhaps it's in the field of romance. Perhaps it's in the field of career. But generally speaking, marketing is persuasion. And we spend most of our lives persuading in one way or another to try to make things happen. And sometimes we spend some time persuading ourselves as well, kind of self-motivation. So as we talk about marketing in this part of the course, I will stretch it at times to include the concept of you marketing you, me marketing me. I have to market myself from the moment you get on the Canvas website and look at my course. What am I trying to sell you? I mean, you're kind of captive in a way. You got to take the damn course. What am I trying to sell you or persuade you of when you open up your Canvas website to see this course, or when you come to class, if you do?
Expertise in the field.
Okay, I've got to persuade you that I've got some degree of expertise or credibility in the field. How do I do that? Let's take that one for the starter. How do I prove that?
In the intro, you mentioned where you went to school and what degrees you have. And
good. I gave you an autobiographical sketch of myself, and I was careful to put a couple of things in there to indicate that I had done something with respect to business. A major in finance, an MBA, economics, small business, taxidermy, consulting. Okay. So that wasn't totally just to be friendly. That was part of my persuasive campaign to convince you, at least to some degree, I have some degree of credibility. What else do I need to be trying to persuade you about when you attend this course, when you take this course?
To listen.
To listen? I'm hoping you're going to expand on that.
It's important to buy into what we're learning.
Perfect. I was going to use the word engage, buy-in. I'm trying to persuade you that it's worth your time and effort to get engaged in this course to sufficient degree that you will be successful. Now, a clear way to make that not happen is to give you 14 hours of lecture to watch every week, or to give you a very dry and boring textbook. We use that technique successfully in most economics classes. Right? So everything is persuasion. Everything is marketing. When I first interviewed at Santa Fe to come to work here, I had been an adjunct for, I don't know, a year or so. and they said, oh, we're going to have a new full-time position in business come open. Why don't you apply for it? And then it was whispered to me on the side, there's probably somebody already picked out, but it would look good if you applied. Okay. I got to looking around and asking around, found out there were 24 people that applied for the job, and they were going to be interviewed, all 24 of them. And they set the interviews up over 3 days. And I said, could you schedule my interview for late on the last day? And I came out here for the first 2 days and sat inconspicuously off to the side and watched the people coming in for the interviews. So you're going into a job interview to be an instructor at a community college in a 2-year business program. What do you wear? What would you wear?
Suit and tie.
Suit and tie. Or the feminine equivalent, which in many cases is basically a business suit also with a skirt, okay? And I watch these people going in and out, and I mean, they look like automatons. I mean, they all look pretty much identical. So I started asking myself, what is it they're trying to hire? Are they trying to hire an expert in business? Or are they trying to hire a teacher? And the answer, of course, is both. But everybody was coming in and selling business expertise. So I went home and I dragged out my old copy of John Malloy's book called Dress for Success. And I read through it very carefully. And I got dressed up in a pair of khakis, a short sleeve white shirt, and a tie. And that's how I came to my job interview. Now, I had plenty of credentials. I've been doing seminars for a year, and I had all the flyers we used to mail out with my picture on it and all these things we were teaching. So I had pretty good credibility there. But I thought the one thing that I'm not seeing, at least superficially, I'm not seeing this ability to relate to people, to students. So I'm going to sell that. That's how I'm going to market myself. That's how I'm going to differentiate myself from everybody else that's going in and out of here. That's how I'm going to be different, and I hope better. And that's what marketing is about. You can't be like everybody else. You think about that in terms of yourself when you get ready to go into the job search mode. Thinking about it yourself in the sense of, hopefully, you're in the process now of making contacts and building networks with fellow students, with faculty, with your employer or employers past, and maybe in professional associations, always a wise idea. And every time you go meet one of those people, even if it's a fellow student, you're marketing yourself. You are trying to establish an identity that is what? What's the perfect student? Mature, disciplined, focused, organized, intellectually adroit, okay? And if you're not trying to constantly develop that persona, you're not marketing yourself. And there's no middle ground. Everybody has a reaction to you and to me. It's either positive or negative. If you go about this consciously and you market yourself, you'll open more doors to more choices in your future. It's that easy. Now, when there's a lot of competition in business, sometimes the only choice is because everybody else is selling the same thing. What happens if you raise your price? There's plenty of other choices for them. Remember that about the elasticity of demand? The demand is very elastic. And if that's the nature of the business you're in, you're selling something that you have lots of competition, you have got to be able to keep your costs down and your price has got to stay competitive. If you can't do that, you can't survive. That's in a highly competitive arena. And we're going to talk in terms of a competitive market as opposed to a not so competitive market. When you don't have much competition, you may be able to mess with the price. You may be able to differentiate yourself from everybody else so that whatever it is you're selling, people are willing to pay more for it. And in the area of job search, and you and me personally, I think that's what we want to be casting about for. Okay? So where we're going now is, we're going to play with a financial calculator tonight. We're going to run through some calculations. I hope you've had time to work on it some before you got here. And then we're going to talk about degrees of competition, at least as a sort of an introduction. Perfect competition and monopolistic competition, the two really competitive economic models we use. Then from that we'll go to oligopoly and monopoly, And those are the four market structures laid out, you may recall, in microeconomics. Perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, monopoly. In this course, we're kind of saying, well, there's really two areas for us. There's highly competitive and not so competitive. And we'll talk about different marketing tactics and strategies, overall strategies, for a business, for profit, but also apply this idea of competition and marketing in other venues, nonprofits, governmental agencies, you and me as individuals, you as a student, me as a faculty member. And I think if you understand that, you make a whole lot better use of the resources you have to get wherever in the hell it is you're trying to go, assuming you know where that is. Okay? That's what we're doing. So, tell me about the calculator. Are you having fun with it? Have you played with it? No? Some? I've got mine as an app on my phone. And again, I'm using the Texas Instruments VA2. You have a set of videos to watch. You have a set of exercises to go through for practice that are on Canvas. Yes?
Have those been posted?
They're down. Let me be sure I'm in the right course. I keep changing courses. If they're not, they will be by tomorrow morning.
Okay.
But if they are, I remember where they are in my management class. I'll have to check.
I checked at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
You couldn't find, did you find videos?
Yes.
Okay, so you do have videos on the
in the
calculator.
syllabus.
In the syllabus, okay.
I go back to
So,
the syllabus.
yeah,
It's
the
the
course
only place
schedule.
I could think of to find it.
Okay. Yeah, the other handouts are just exercises. We'll run through the basics right here, right now. We'll do some exercises. I'll post those exercises if they're not posted. I like to think I put them somewhere and hid them. And you will have time to exercise this calculator quite a bit between now and the time we see each other again. This is really not very difficult, okay? So, if you have a calculator, a financial calculator, get it out, and if you don't, sit next to someone who does, okay?
Do you have to pay for that app?
$15. And since the calculator itself costs $30 and I lose an average of 1 per year, I am way ahead now already. Yeah. All right, calculators. Here we go. Time value of money. If I gave you the choice of giving you $100 today or $100 a year from now, which would you prefer?
Today?
Why?
Because it's $100 either way.
You can invest it. If you have-
Because if you had it today, you could have a year in which to earn some interest with it, to invest it or whatever. So money is more valuable now than the same amount sometime in the future. Well, if it's worth $100 today, what is it really worth in terms of real value if you don't get it for a year?
Probably
If you don't get it for a year, go ahead.
Probably a little bit less.
Whatever you could have earned with it if you had had it and you had to give it up. Let's say you could have put it in an investment and earned 10%, so you'd have made $10. Well, if you could have made $10 with it, you'd have 110, but instead I'm only give you 100. So it lost $10 in value. It's only worth $90. You see what I'm saying?
Is it, for example, like if you want to buy the gold coin and you want to sell it back, they're going to reduce the price in order to take it back?
Well, yeah, but that's not necessarily time value of money. That's just plain old shysterism or marketing. They're gonna charge you money every chance they get. Certainly if you're going to return something or sell it back, they'll charge you a stocking fee or a processing fee or something like that. But this is, think of it, if you had $100 and you could make 10%, you'd have $110 in a year. But if I don't give it to you for a year, you lost that $10. So you get your $100, but you lost $10 you could have earned, so it's only worth $90 to you. That's all we're talking about. But we're talking about it in two ways. That was $100 lump sum. A lump sum now compared to that same lump sum amount in the future. What are their relative values? And it will depend on the interest rate you could earn, which we will frequently call the discount rate. Okay? We would discount it at such and such a rate. The other calculation is called annuities, and that involves payments. Suppose I was going to give you $100 a year for 5 years. If you could invest it at 10% every year, what would it be worth in 5 years? A regular series of payments, an annuity calculation. So we play lump sums and we play annuities. Okay? We'll play lump sums to begin with. And we'll make it fairly straightforward. particularly since it looks like somebody stole all the markers out of here. That's just lovely. All right, we're going to take a time out. Okay, we'll try it again. Okay, we have markers. There are some terms and some concepts that I'm going to throw out here and there that I'll ask you to remember also. One of them just occurred to me. It's called the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the commons, a frequently used economic experience that explains a lot. The commons is the term used in earlier days in Great Britain for shared areas that everyone was free to use. And so people had a tendency, if they wanted to graze their sheep, well, just put them out on the commons because it cost you nothing. What do you suppose happened to the commons?
Destroyed.
They got destroyed. That was what was brought to mind when I couldn't find any markers here in the classroom tonight. If you put markers out here for the faculty, the intention is that they use them and leave them. But they look at it and say, oh, I can have my own markers, and they march out with them. And as a result, we have no markers. Tragedy of the commonly shared markers rather than grass. Tragedy of the commons. Whenever anything is free, people tend to overconsume it and destroy it. Think of the fisheries. Okay? If you know, there's a saying, there's an old lake somewhere, I thought it was in Florida. The Indian translation of it was, you fish on your side, I fish on my side, nobody fish in the middle. That was pretty smart. That way you didn't deplete the lake. Because absent that, the only incentive there is to go out and catch every damn fish you can before your competition does. So, little things for little minds. Here we go, part 2. Lump sum calculations. When I'm putting this on the board, I'm going to tell you the buttons you're going to be pushing basically. There's a PV button on your calculator for present value, the value of the money today. There is a I/Y, that's the interest rate per year or the discount rate. There is an N for how many years or whatever are we talking about. And when you're using lump sum, a single amount, we will use the future value button. And it's really pretty simple after that. Warning, when you turn your calculator on and you get ready to do these financial calculations, before every calculation, go up to the little yellow button on the left that says second. And then if you look down where the, I believe it's the future value button is, down a little lower over on the right. Make sure I'm telling you the truth. Hello. Yeah, 2 rows down above future value, it says CLRTVM. All the little secondary functions are in yellow up here, the same color as this button. And so before you do anything, every time, before you do any calculations, hit second, clear TVM. That takes any numbers that were in here from our earlier calculations and clears them out. Because if you don't clear them out,
What was N?
N is number of periods of time we're talking about. So that's the first thing. Always clear it. Second thing is, let's take an example. If I had $100 today and I was going to earn 8% interest and I could leave it in the bank for 12 years, how much would I have in the future? And the way what's the word I want? My notation looks like this. Apostrophe FV means calculate the future value. And here's the other important thing. When you're doing these lump sums and the annuities, when you're doing lump sums, either the present value or the future value has to be a negative number. Okay, so if you leave this as a positive number, your answer will have a negative in front of it. Don't worry about it. You don't need to worry about the negative. So what are we going to do? We're just going to put these numbers in with these buttons, right? 100, press PV. 8, because it rounds, it's in whole percentages, just put 8, press IY. 12, press N. And then what? Above the second number is a button called CPT. That means compute. So you go compute future value. Let's see here. We said for 12 years at 8%. Oh, that's pretty good. Clearly Strickland made an error. I got $37,000. That would be really cool if it happened.
I'll have a compute number or button on it.
The downside of these phone apps is the buttons don't always press.
$251.82.
That sounds pretty good.
Mr. Strickland?
Sir?
I don't know if I have a compute button.
Okay.
I think this is a cheap calculator.
251. Let's see what you got. Financial. It's got them in there somewhere.
Right.
You have an HP.
Here you
Just
are.
press,
Here.
just press future value. You don't have to press.
Oh, okay, just press future value.
Yeah. You gotta. Yeah.
You work.
I don't know about that.
Sure did.
Yeah. Thanks, sir.
251.81.
Is that what you have?
Is everybody comfortable about that? Yes, ma'am.
Mine has been the same number in for everything.
Let me see it.
And it's been 12 years ago, so that's what I would.
We're just gonna start all over. Second, put a TV in. Everything's empty. We'll do 100 for present value. We'll do 8 for interest and 12 for him. And we'll do compute future value. And there'll be some rounding differences. Your calculator's set to 2 decimal points, so it'll round to 2.
Okay.
If you want to set it to 4, we can do that whenever.
We didn't get that, yeah.
What'd you get?
Shows 12, I don't know why.
I'm going to turn it off, turn it on.
Okay,
Second, clear TV in.
yeah,
100 for present value,
yeah,
8 for interest rate,
yeah.
12 for in, compute future value.
Okay, good, thank you.
Good. Everybody else comfortable? Okay? Yes? No? The occasional nod would be appreciated if you're on track. My first wife informs me, or used to inform me repeatedly, that I do not read minds very well. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, if I use a different calculator,
If you can get it to do this, no problem.
I feel it's much easier than,
I'm sorry?
I feel the other calculator is much easier.
What are you using, an HP?
The TI 84.
Okay, yeah, the 84's got that as a secondary set of functions. That's good. The business analyst is for business majors, and we typically have limited abilities, so we use a simplified input process. All right, how do we change this around? Let me give you 2 variations here. As long as I know any 3 of these numbers, the calculator will tell me the 4th. Okay? So if, for example, I said, gee, I've got $1,500 and I've got 8 years to invest it before I need to pull it out, and I really would like to have about $6,500 at the end of that time, what kind of interest rate would I have to earn to make that happen? Now be careful. Either the 1,500 or the 6,500, you must put it in as a negative number. If you put them both in as positive, you will get the well-known error 5. Okay?
Bird.
Ask me how I know.
Must have been looking at my calculator.
Anybody?
22%?
20.12 or 20.11, somewhere in there. As on the midterm exam, I will ask you to show me your calculations, and as long as there'll be some differences in rounding, no big deal. All right? Anybody got questions about this? Yes, sir.
Yeah, how would we show calculation if,
You just put this down on your paper so I know what you put in.
okay,
And basically what happens when I'm grading, if I see the right answer, I don't worry about it. If I see a wrong answer, I go back and see what you did. And on occasion, I've noticed this on the finance exam I just graded, on occasion people put in the right numbers and did something squirrely and lost and got the wrong answer. And they still got a lot of credit. Not full, but a lot of credit for that answer. Okay, how are we doing? Second way we can screw this up, okay? Or make it more interesting if you wish. This assumed that you compounded the interest on your investment every year. What if you compounded it every month? So it looks like this. Again, making up a problem. I have $4,000. I can invest it at 6% compounded monthly. And I'm going to leave it in there for 7 years. How much will I have? So I have to make a couple of small adjustments. My interest rate, 6%, is going to compound monthly. So I will get only 1/12 of that interest every month. So I have to take my interest rate, divide it by 12, and just hit equals, and push IY. That's how you put it in. And what about N? How many times will my interest compound?
7 times 12.
7 times,
12.
no. Yeah, sorry. Monthly for 7 years. 7 times 12, hello. 7 times 12, 84. So if you put those in, you'll get your future value. Let's do that one real quick.
so, you put the 6/12,
Equals. Go 6 divided by 12
right,
equals, and whatever it shows, just push IY. This one's a nice round 1/2, right?
right,
But sometimes it carries, you got 7 divided by 12 or something like that. What we got? 84 for N. 4,000 for the present value. $6,081.48, give or take. This isn't rocket science, is it? There are a couple of simple rules. Always clear the calculator. Always make sure one of these numbers is negative if you're putting those two in. Always remember to look at your compounding periods, and after that it's just plug and chug. Okay so far? Okay. We'll come back and do a little bit with that again, but that's pretty much it. Can I erase the board? Everybody comfortable? Okay, let's pick up the second kind of calculation, the one that involves regular payments, which we will call annuities. So now we're going to be using the PMT, or payment button. Sometimes we're going to calculate the future value of payments, and sometimes we're going to calculate the present value of all those payments you're getting ready to receive. okay? So for example, I'm going to give you $500 a year. I'm going to do this for the next 17 years. We will be able to earn interest, or could earn interest on this money, let's say it's 7%. What is it worth today? Calculate the present value.
Do we need a negative number in one of these two? Just like
Yeah,
the other
either
one?
the payment or this one will come up negative, must come up negative. You okay with those? Everybody okay with my number? 4881.61? Okay, think about this. How much money did I give you? Something about this doesn't seem right. Is it just me? No, this, we're doing present value, never mind. I'm going to give you $8,500, aren't I?
Yeah.
$500 a year for 17 years. That's $8,500. But you've got to wait to get it. You only get $500 every year. So it's not really worth $8,500. That $500 I give you in 17 years ain't worth a hell of a lot. But when you add up, you know, what's the worth? What the 500's worth in 17 years, plus what's the 500 worth in 16 years and 15? You add all those back up, that gives you the 4881. Let me tell you another way to do that. Well, if I had $4,881 lump sum and I could invest it at 7%, I could be pulling out $500 every year for 17 years. You see what I'm saying? Let's say that again. If I had $4,881, and I could put it in an investment that paid me 7% per year, I could pull out $500 every year for 17 years. You with me on that? Okay. Let's try another calculation with the same numbers. What's that money going to be worth in the future? I give you $500, you put it in the bank earning 7%. A year later, I give you another $500, you put it in the bank at 17%. What's its future value? Anybody?
$15,420.11.
$15,420.11. Well, what does that mean? What's going on here? Once again, if I give you $500 this year and it earns 7% every year for 17 years, that's worth something. Give you another $500 a year from now, it earns for 16 years at 7%. You keep adding all that up, that's what you would have in 17 years. If you keep putting that money in the bank and it keeps growing and earning at 7%. Okay with that?
Would that be in addition to the 4,800?
No, that's a whole different
That's a
calculation.
whole different calculation.
Yeah, that's
So
my
what would you
present.
start with?
How do you mean?
I don't know. I don't know. I thought.
It would depend on which way I presented the problem to.
Right. Okay.
Okay?
But I have a question, like for example, the future value has to be a negative, right? You have to
Yes.
make it negative.
Yes, either this one or this one will be a negative.
Okay.
So if you put this in as a negative, you'll get a positive answer. If you put it in as a positive, you'll have a negative in front of your answer. Disregard the negative.
I actually got a number that is twice that.
Or you can invest my money for me. Have you gone back and redone
I
it?
did it twice.
Did you clear
Yes.
your TVM? Okay. I got a sense of humor. Show me.
So we have to.
Right, so the calculation they use to figure out what the lump sum would be, and they can still make more money.
Yeah.
I wonder if we put the seven inside of it.
Yes, I was wondering. So that's like, you know, so you're making that
So
much.
at the end of your
It's very
17
possible,
years,
yeah.
Okay.
if
I
you don't
transfer
ever
the
touch the
numbers
money,
over.
I'll $500
I know the feeling.
in your account, and you just
Huh?
let it sit.
I know the feeling.
17 years, you'll have
How we doing?
$1,000.
Doing okay? Let's put all this to work on a problem. Jim Bob is 24 years old. He wants to retire when he's 65. He's gotten with his actuaries and they say he's going to live till he's 90. He can earn 4% on his money. Listen carefully. How much money each month does Jim Bob need to save, earning 4%, in order to retire and have a $2,000 a month check out of his account? And make sure you got the details right. Now let me talk to you for just a minute before you start cranking numbers and punching buttons. This is a two-part problem. This is the retirement problem. This is the problem I put on your last test because I forgot we hadn't done TVM yet. You will see this on the next test. This is a two-part problem. Jim's got to save up money until he's 65, and then he's going to take out money till he's 90. So the first thing you've got to calculate is how much does he have to have when he's 65 in order to be pulling out this $2,000 a month. So I'm going to do that calculation over here. From 65 to 90, that's 25 years. Times 12 months per year, because he wants $2,000 a month. Everything here is on a monthly basis. So 12 to 25, how much is that?
300.
He wants 300 payments. So 300 is in. He wants his payment to be the $2,000 a month. How much interest is he going to earn? 4%, but he's doing it on a monthly basis. So for the IY part, you need 4 divided by 12. And then you need to calculate, at that point in time, what present value amount of money must he have. So let's do that one first. Anybody got a number?
378,904 with 97 cents.
378, 904
97 cents.
and 97 cents. That means when Jim Bob turns 65 years old, That's how much money he's got to have in the bank. Okay with me? Because he's going to be pulling $2,000 a month out of that for 25 years. But the part he doesn't pull out, the part that stays in the bank, continues to earn interest at 4% and, in our assumption, compounded monthly. So that's what he needs at age 65. How much time does he have to do that? 41 years. He's 24 now, until 65. So we say, okay, he needs to accumulate a future value of 378, 904, 97. He has 41 years, and he's doing this monthly, so 41 times 12. I think that's 492. The interest rate we're assuming constant at 4%, but it's being compounded monthly. What does he need to calculate?
Calculates his payment.
He needs to calculate his monthly payment. So clear the registers on your calculator and put the data in. Anybody else confirm that number? Any questions? If you will, go ahead. I see some puzzled looks.
I'm not getting the right numbers.
Did you get the 378,000? Okay.
I don't understand.
Here's what you got. First calculation. He's got 300 for in. 4 divided by 12. You're right, 2,000 for payment. Equals, push equals. That's your answer, that's probably where your mistake is. For everybody else, if you're getting some errors, when you do this for the interest rate, 4 divided by 12 equals, and whatever number is displayed, just push IY. If you do 4 divided by 12 and then hit IY, it's putting 12 in there. So you got to say equals after that. Okay, very common problem. Yes, ma'am.
The future value,
Mhm.
how did you get that? Is this
I took my present value that he's going to need when he's 65, and I said, well, that's what he's going to need, but today he's 24.
Okay,
So that's the future value from age 24.
okay.
Good, good question. Anybody else? When you look at the materials that I will post on Canvas, you will see 2 problem sets with different problems. If you can do this one, I think you can do all the rest, but I want you to be sure and go through them before I see you again, and if you get any issues along the way, send me an email. Okay? 2 problem sets, there's an explanation before that of everything we said tonight, and all of this stuff is on video. Questions about the calculator and the calculations at this point, anybody? Okay? Let's talk about competition and marketing for just a little bit. How are we doing for time? We'll give it 15, 20 minutes tops, okay? I went in yesterday to Quest Laboratories and had some blood drawn for my physical. Got any idea how many Quest Laboratories there are in this town? 3. I knew where 2 of them were, and they didn't have appointments open. So I headed for the one that I thought was on Tower Road. It's not on Tower Road. It's in a place called Tower Park or something on Archer Road. However, at my advanced age, I know better than to just rush into stuff, so I left an hour and a half early. And I made it with 5 minutes to spare. Okay? Is Quest Laboratories faced with competition?
They have some.
LabCorp is in town because my wife's insurance company makes her use LabCorp.
And then you have Shands.
And then you have Shands, okay. And, you know, at various different times, doctors' practices have set up their own laboratories. Okay? So I suggest to you, yeah, they do have some competition, but not a hell of a lot. I didn't really Google laboratories or, you know, labs in Gainesville. I'm not sure how many would come up. But if you were running one of the Quest labs, are you in business for a profit or are you a governmental agency or a nonprofit?
No, that's a for-profit.
It's a for-profit corporation. The object of the game is to do what? Make every damn dime you can, mostly legitimately, right? Okay? So then your task is to not just manage, but also to market Quest Labs. And let me make you the regional manager of all the Quest Labs in Lake City, Gainesville, and Ocala. How are you going to go about marketing your business, even though there's not a lot of competition?
Hospitals and doctors' offices.
In your case, you have what we call a derived demand. The demand for your lab is derived from, in a sense, what the doctor needs. And so you've got to have a really good relationship with as many physicians in this town as you can, who will then refer their patients to go to your lab. And so you and your, if you have one, a sales force are going to be in and out of doctors' offices on a regular basis, not simply saying, hi, how are you? Let me introduce myself, let me tell you about my lab, but coming back periodically saying, hey, how's everything going? Are you having any issues? Here's my card. If you have any issue at all, you call me because you don't want to lose those doctors. How important is word of mouth?
Extremely.
It'll make you or break you. And all you got to do is get a few doctors mad at you, and they're telling all their friends. Do you do that? If you get treated badly by a business, do you tell your friends?
Oh, yeah.
Do you? This is Strickland's rule of thumb. It's called, I don't know if I told you guys this one, the lifetime value of a customer. We did that, right?
Yeah.
And so if you make me mad, how many people do I tell?
Everyone.
It used to be we said, I told 3, each of them told 2, each of them told 1. And so by making Strickland mad, you lost 16 customers. But what is the truth in today's world?
Social media.
Yeah. Social media.
I've got,
could
I
be
think,
any number.
I don't know, 150, 200, 250 people on Facebook. Let's say that only 40% of them live in Gainesville. Let's say that's only 40 people. I tell all 40 of them, well, there's 640 customers. The first time. Okay? So we know that you've got to do everything you can to keep business coming back in the door, because it's a whole lot cheaper to get a repeat customer than it is to go out and find a new one. And so the whole, you know, I'm kind of hitting different topics here, but this whole issue of customer service is life and death. Because more and more these days, many products and in fact a lot of services are becoming what we call a commodity. Now, a commodity used to mean something like corn or wheat or gold or oil. And what that meant was a barrel of oil was a barrel of oil was a barrel of oil. An ounce of gold was an ounce of gold was an ounce of gold. A bushel of wheat was a bushel of wheat was a bushel of wheat. They're all the same. But what are we seeing? And let's take it as an example, computers. How much difference is there across the range of computers you and I can buy? I think there's very little. I think once you specify, I want an i7 chip and I want a, I don't know, 500 gigabyte solid state drive, and I want, you know, I give you the specs for the computer, I would tell you that there's 15 other companies that'll put that together for you. And they're all going to be basically the same. Let's take another example. How much difference is there in smartphones? How much difference is there in the Samsung, whatever they're using now, and the iPhone? You think there's a lot? I think it's, for me, as a rather unsophisticated user, I think it's virtually the same thing. I had an awful time trying to decide which one to get. Because every time I'd ask people, I'd get a 50-50 split. Well, I wouldn't have anything but this. No, I wouldn't touch that garbage. This is much better. Put any name you want on it. So to me, it was kind of like, well, what the hell? They're about the same. How about SUVs? Suppose you got, you know, you're married, you got a couple of kids, you're going to do a little traveling over the next few years, and you think, we need an SUV about the size of a Ford Explorer. How many are there to choose from? I'm going to tell you that for the most part, Ford Explorer, what's Chevy make like that? Blazer, the Honda Pilot, give me some of the others.
Cherokee.
The Cherokee. To me, okay, they are pretty much the same thing. Now, if your business, whether it's a service you sell or a product you sell, if it is slowly becoming very similar across brands, if it's slowly becoming a commodity, how are you going to compete? How are you going to differentiate yourself from everybody else?
Marketing.
In what sense? What kind of marketing? Smart marketing.
Yeah, just finding ways to get people to perceive you as being more valuable.
Good. We're talking about persuasion and perception. Because perception is reality as far as marketing goes. Perception, what people perceive is their reality, and that's how they make their decisions. They may be dead wrong, but it doesn't matter. They're going to make their decisions on that. So you've got to change their perception, even if you can't change reality. How do you do that? Nice advertisements, nice looking people in there, sharp looking car, wonderful interior, smiling faces, happy kids. Cool. Everybody else has got that. What else can you do? One of the things we do, we say, what kind of person typically buys this size SUV new? Because we're selling new vehicles. And so we do our market research. And we go out and ask tons of questions, or we hire a marketing research firm to do that for us. And we talk to all the auto dealerships and the salesmen, and we try to get, well, the average person, as it turns out, is between 35 and 45 years old, has 2.4 kids, makes $62,500 a year, is about 6'1" tall. I don't know. We find out everything we can about them. And once we know what the typical customer looks like, we begin asking questions. What is it they're looking for in an SUV? What are their values? What are their sticking points? And if we can analyze our target market that way, and we may have 2 or 4 or 6 targets, but if we can analyze them and know them well, we know what social media to use to reach them. We know what TV channels or magazines or other publications to use to reach them. And then we're smart marketing. But we are constantly striving to know more about our customer, to give our customer more value than he gets from anybody else so that he keeps coming back and he turns around that lifetime value in reverse. He doesn't go tell 3 people how miserable an experience he has. He comes out back instead, and maybe he just tells 1 or 2 about what a great time he had buying a car. You ever had a great time buying a car? Anybody? Have you? Where?
Jacksonville.
Okay. What kind of car did you buy?
My husband bought a Ford.
Okay. Before Saturn went out of business, I think between my dad and I, plus buying for my daughter, I think we bought 6 vehicles there. That was the most positive car buying experience I ever had. And by the way, some of the best cars we ever bought. And I told people about that all the time. And I went down there because a good friend of mine told me what a great experience she had. So we can take that whole lifetime value thing and turn it around, but we've got to be able to persuade people in a positive way. So competition is going to be a lot like that. In economics, what we do, just to revisit this, I'm hoping you looked at this, we say that in a real highly competitive market, high competition, and in fact what I'm drawing on here is very close to what's called perfect competition, the model, and I asked you to watch a few videos to try to remind you of what that looked like, is you have a demand curve that's fairly flat. A fairly elastic demand curve. And that means if you're here on this demand curve, you're charging $16,000 and you're selling 27 vehicles a month, okay? What happens if you raise your price a little bit?
Lose the quantity sold.
Say again?
You lose customers.
You lose a lot of customers because the curve's fairly elastic. You raise your price to $17,000 and suddenly you're way back on the demand curve and you're only selling, let's say, 17 vehicles a month. Why is the demand curve so elastic? Because your customers have plenty of others to choose from. Because you are, in a sense, a commodity. There's a lot of substitutes for whatever it is you're selling. And so when that is the case, when you are talking about a product or a service that is has fairly become a commodity, you've got to find the terms of competition to use to compete. And if you do it on price, we have a term for that in economics. It's called stupid. If you keep trying to cut price and your competitors are able to match you, it won't be long before you're all down there selling at bare bones, no profit, very little profit. So price competition in a highly competitive market, not real smart unless you are absolutely able to cut the cost much further than anybody else. If you can cut your costs, that's your alternative, you can drive them out of business. Once you drive them out of business, you can charge any price you want, right? But the ability to cut costs will only take you so far. How would you go about cutting costs at Quest Lab? You're responsible for 9 different clinics in the area. I'm your manager and I'm saying your profit margins aren't high enough. You've got to bring the costs down in those laboratories. How do you suppose you could do that?
Decrease staff.
Say again?
Decrease staff.
That's the typical first answer in America today, is cut staff, and if we cut them far enough and find out we're in trouble, we hire them back, but at lower wages. Because everybody's dying for a job anyway. Do you see any fallacy or potential danger in that approach?
Customer service will be not as good.
I think that's the first inkling.
Efficiency will go down because people are having to work more hours to.
What happens to employee morale?
Go south.
It goes south. When employee morale goes south, everything else begins to follow it. Quality of work, timeliness, that is your late arrivals, early, go home, calling in sick, that starts to escalate. The good performers you have work themselves to the bone, and you don't want to pay them more, and so they begin to wonder, well, what the hell am I doing here? And when they leave you, you really got problems. And the good, have we said this before in this class? What's the first thing you do when you get your first job? Start looking for the next one. You keep your network up. You stay in contact with your professional associations, your former employers, former co-workers, former faculty members where you went to school. You maintain those contacts so that you can write them anytime you want and say, I'm not having too much fun on this job. You know anybody could use me? That's where the better jobs come from. Okay? And so if you're a good employee and you're well networked, the first time they start treating you this way, you can jump ship until you find somebody who's willing to take care of you. That's got to be your approach. Okay? But when employee morale deteriorates, something else disappears. It's called discretionary effort. Any idea what that is? Discretionary effort.
Well, if employees are being treated well, they're gonna do more, they're willing to do more if you ask them, but if you take everything away from them and put all that extra stress on them, they're not gonna wanna help you out if you're
Good.
in a bind.
Tell me your answer again.
So just going above and beyond what's
Yeah,
normally expected.
and even without being asked. It's the employee who comes in early or the employee who stays late because they see they need to help the company, to help the customer. And they put in that extra, unasked for sometimes, effort. You know what happens to that when they get unhappy? Not only does it go to zero, it goes into negative numbers. And then you become a satisficer. A satisficer is someone who does only enough to get by. You know anybody like that? I had a bunch of them in this class last term. Okay? Except they didn't even do enough to get by. Okay? So when you start talking about competition and customer loyalty and discretionary effort, this whole world of managerial economics kind of shifts focus towards management and marketing rather than just economic theory. That's kind of some of the stuff I'd like to dabble in as we go along the way. Over the next few weeks, I will probably be posting a few articles and asking you to read them, and I will hold you accountable for them. And so I might say on the examination, in reference to Mr. Spence's article on customer service, explain what his main three issues or points were. And I will expect that you will have read that or have watched the video if I happen to find those, that sort of thing. So this second exam has a little bit of quantitative material in the sense of the consumer surplus and the demand curve, but it also has a fair amount of qualitative stuff, the degree of competition, the need to market, etc. Let me conclude with one last topic. Take me, I think, just a couple of seconds. How do you go about marketing something? And once again, this applies to you and me, as well as a business, a nonprofit, a governmental agency, etc. And so this is Strickland's basic marketing plan. MKG is marketing, where I came from. Marketing plan. 7 steps. First, identify the needs that you satisfy with your product or your service. What do people need? When I had a taxidermy business, you know what taxidermy is, everybody? Stuffing dead animals so people can hang them on the wall and tell lies about them. We found that a number of people who came into our store in that first year weren't bringing in game or mounts for us to mount. They were looking for wildlife-oriented art and decorations for their home. They wanted pictures. They wanted statues, wood carvings. Damn. We sat down and talked about it, just my partner and I. So what are we really doing here? What needs are we satisfying? We found out we're satisfying 2 needs, 2 types of customers. And sometimes they overlap. We were satisfying the customer who just went out and shot a great big rack deer, who wanted to put it on the wall and brag about it to his buddies. We call those the trophy guys. We were also satisfying people who wanted to come in because they like wildlife and wildlife art as a motif for some part of or all of their house. And they were looking, again, for wood carvings or paintings or whatever. And we call those the wildlife art people. So we have the wildlife art people and the trophy hunters. And you market to those 2 entirely differently. They're looking for different messages altogether. And so we build separate campaigns. What happens is, once you identify the needs that you're satisfying, then you identify your target markets. And again, for us in that particular setting, it was 2 of them. It may be several. Who has those needs? And what common characteristics do they have? After that, these next 4 steps are called the marketing mix. And you need a different mix, as a rule, for each market, each target. So the 4 parts to the marketing mix are called the 4 Ps. And you never take a marketing class without learning the 4 Ps. Right, Arturo?
Yes, sir.
You remember the 4 Ps?
No, sir.
Okay. Price. What kind of price are you going to set for your product? And we've talked a lot about that in here. Now, price changes can change and how a certain price connotes a certain consumer surplus, okay? But price says a lot of things. Price says quality for some things. If your price is too cheap, people are pretty sure you're selling garbage. If your price is too high, they're pretty sure you're too impressed with yourself. Price has got to also cover your costs. What else does price do? A certain price range for products eliminates some parts of your market that you might want to do, by the way. It was common for us to have someone come in occasionally and say, I just shot a deer, look how good he is. Great! Come on in, let's take him in. And he said, well, how much y'all charge? We charge $325 for a deer head. Oh, damn! My buddy does this on the side out of his garage. He'll do it for $110. And I'd say, well, hell, let me help you put it back in the truck. You take it over to Bobby Joe and let him mount the damn thing. Because if he's mounting it for $110, I can tell you what's going to happen. In about 3 months, there's going to be a trail of ants going up to that mount because he didn't properly process it. I don't want those customers. So if $325 is too expensive for you, I don't want you. Because if you have to really work hard to get me $325, there's a good chance you will never pay for it. Sometimes we have to fire our customers. Price lets you filter out some of the market. Second P, product. What is it you're selling exactly? Think of the 5 senses. What does it look like, smell like, taste like, sound like? What's got to happen when you walk in a bakery?
Smells good. Look
It's
good.
got to smell like fresh bread. I don't care if you've got to put it out in the little candle holders and some artificial scent, but it damn sure is going to smell like fresh bread, right? In a flower shop, right? So when I come into Quest Lab, what had better be my sensory experience?
Sterile.
Clean,
Absolutely clean.
professional,
Professional, I'm not sure how we define that.
just the appearance of the staff that's
Good.
going to be working.
They look sharp.
Yeah.
They're very, very courteous. They have a good sense of humor, and they have very clear, competent skills. Okay, we're working there, right? And we can identify people who are working for us who get out of the mold, and we got to keep that corrected. Product. I'm selling you on this class. I need you to work hard in this class and put in the effort so you can pass it. How do I address product there? What does this class look like, taste like, smell like, feel like, sound like?
Something that's going to be useful in the future.
Good. I've got to find the right combination of words that evokes images in your mind of what you're going to get as a result of this course, or how much closer it's going to get you to finishing school, because nobody likes to go to school, okay? What else? My appearance is going to be important. And again, the appearance of my webpage or whatever else like that. Price, product. How are you going to promote your business? And by here I mean, are you going to have a sales force? Are you going to do a lot of advertising? Are you going to do just kind of public relations things to keep your image up? Are you going to do other promotions like sponsoring a sports team or something like that? What's your promotional mix going to be? How are you going to get the word out? And then finally, the 6th element, the 4th part of the mix, marketing mix, place. Place means 2 things. If you're in the business of manufacturing something, it means where are you going to sell it? What stores is it going to be sold in? If you're in business for yourself, as we did with the taxidermy business, it means where is your business going to be located? Where are customers going to find you? Now, we opened the business before the internet. So if we were doing it again today, we would have to have a website, and we would have to be doing some search engine optimization to make sure when people said taxidermy Gainesville, ours was the first name that came up on their search. Okay? But before the internet, you had to get visibility so everybody knew who you were, where you were, and what you did. We located on US 301 in Stark. 35,000 vehicles every day went past our shop. So we made sure we had plenty of signage, and we had developed a customer list that ran from Minnesota to the Florida Keys. So place becomes an important element in many, but not all, decisions. And then the last element of this marketing plan, number 7, is follow-up. You go back to your customers and you ask, how did we do? And that feeds back in and lets you readjust, reanalyze, perfect that marketing plan on a continuing basis. Okay? So I'm going to ask you to remember those 7 steps, be able to discuss them briefly, and I may give you a particular product or service about that. I would hope that if you're running Quest Labs and I come to your lab, that one of the things that happens is you collect my email address and you send me a follow-up survey that said, how did we do? Okay? I know that I've taken a little more time than I told you I would. We will conclude at this point. Do you have any other last-minute issues? Anybody, anything? Look for me to post stuff on Canvas for you. Some quantitative effort on this next exam, but a lot of qualitative discussion type questions. Okay? Peace.